And we are live. I do believe this is transmitting correctly. Let's check everything, make sure we're doing all right tonight. I sure hope you good looking, sexy people out there in Happy Land are doing all right tonight. It's good magic. Welcome to the show, everyone. Drive to 1,000. Let's try to get there sometime soon. We're only about 80 subs out from 1,000, guys. So spread the word, share a video, secretly sub your grandma, all that happy horse shit that makes YouTube's algorithms bark like Pavlov's dog. Trying to get this microphone sound figured out. How far do I need to be from the mic? Is the mic working correctly? You never know. I'm gonna check the feedback loop, everyone, and see how it sounds. With no further ado, why don't you take a deep breath? Yeah. Hold it for 3, 2, 1. Command yourself to relax. Imagine sounds all right. Imagine a sphere of scintillating white light floating just above your head. Pull a beam of that energy down into you, into your mind, awakening and illuminating the interior palace of the mind. Take another deep breath. Hold and let that energy fill the mind. Bring the light down further, past Oth, into the center Dantian. Take a deep breath and vibrate. Adonai. Yeah, feel the vibration continuing to vibrate. Scintillating white light, cleansing and refreshing. Take another deep breath. Continue the energy down into the lower Dantian and vibrate. Any old God name you like. Vibrating, scintillating white light all the way down. Complete the middle pillar all the way into Malkut. Refreshing. Feel the energy. Welcome back, Wayfarer, Wanderer, Wizard, Warrior, Wild Catalyte, wherever you are, whoever you are, and whenever you may be receiving this transmission. I hope you are doing well. FM radio jockey Frank Monday broadcasting to you from the central kingdom of the celestial dragon Twilight Zone, old Peking, far behind the bamboo firewall, atop a crystal pyramidion, transmitting out over a sea level plane in all directions and dimensions. Hope this is reaching you well, Wayfarer. We had a visitor to the Ideas Room. He's got the fire going on. Santero 59. Good to see you, Santero. Welcome to the transmission. Hope you're doing well. We'll go ahead and run the intro video. But first, I remind you, Wayfarer, hit the likes. Hit those like buttons, man. Get those YouTube algobots barking like Pavlov's dog, man. Woof, woof. That'll keep them barking, right? Keep them wagging their tails. Every like, they say, gets another 10 eyes on the video. Check me out at buymeacoffee.com/Frank Monday. Pull something in the tip jar, man. Then I'll put the lead in my pencil, the pep in my step, keep me rolling with the punches, nose to the grindstone. It's your first time, don't let it be your last time, Wayfarer. Check back often. We're going to be getting into a 100-day challenge, August, September, next month, man. Autumn equinox is when I'm going to launch into the 100-day challenge internal alchemy, man. It should be good fun. Started off right, guys, with the adoration of Abraxas. If you know it, say it with me. Holy art thou, Lord of the universe, the vast and the mighty one, creator of heaven and earth, maker of all things visible and invisible, master of both the light and the darkness, he who was, is, and always shall be. We adore thee and we invoke thee. Send us one of your divine spiritual agents, our holy guardian angel, to protect and guide us through the innumerable snares of the earthly sphere, and a cleansing wind to disperse all negativity and endless human opinion. Teach us those secret things which we must know for the completion of the great work and the glory of thine ineffable name, Adonai. So it is commanded and confirmed, so mote it be. Remember, O neophyte, goodness alone is power, silence is strength, will regaineth omnipotence, and love lieth at the foundation. Let's get into it, man. We got to break through the algorithm and get 100 subs in there, man. We need 80 to 100 subs today so we can reach our 1,000 sub mark. I don't know if I've ever seen that happen in a single day, but hell, you never know. Might get lucky. Let's check out this intro. Frank Monday intro, everyone. Add it to the stage.
One of those old Frank Monday productions coming at ya.
Okay guys, our next comedian, it's a bit of a treat, to be honest. It is a bit of a treat. He's been away for 3 years. He is now back from the dead. Well, America. Give a big round of applause for Frank Monday.
Appreciate that shit. Nick's a good man. You know what that's like, being a good man. It's tough in a fucking city like this, though. You know, nobody gives a fuck. They're like, God damn, that's some crazy shit. Motherfucker wearing high heels and shit. Looking good, too, huh? Yeah, you guys like that. That's all right. It's okay to fall down occasionally. I do that sometimes. All right, being back in the G is pretty fucking nerve-wracking. You know, performing for 4 minutes straight. The only other time I get this anxious when I gotta perform for 4 minutes straight is when I gotta make love to my wife.
Onion ring. Yeah, they're alright. Hey, be watching for the Star Wars blog Rebellion coming out in December. You'll love it. It's follow-up to the award-winning Generations. Oh yeah. There you go, Frank. Here's my burger.
All right, guys, that's about it there, right? Santero says that he or she, not sure. I think typically Spanish names that end in O should be masculine, right? The feminine would be Santera. Santero. 59, hanging out in Ibiza. Not familiar with that location, man. I'll have to check it out, look into it, see where it's at. 1425 in Ibiza. Okay, so you are, let me see, if the sun just went down here. Wow, you're pretty far from me, man. Probably somewhere on the North American or South American continent would be my guess. Although I don't know if that's accurate. Let me check. Yeah, Dallas is in the AM right now, 7.25. 6.25 in Denver, 8.25 in New York City, 2:15 in Paris. Okay, so you might either be north or south of Paris. Oh, Spain. Okay, Spain. Very good. Yeah, I don't. My European geography isn't great. You know, it is what it is. I'm a Californian myself, but I currently live in China. They're doing great things over in China, guys. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody knows that China is one of the forefronts in the technological society. Yeah. Technotron has taken over. So it is what it is, you know. Good stuff, though. Yeah, I've been here for 25 years, man. I've never been to Spain. Never. I've been to Europe. I've been to Germany and England, but I have not been to France or Spain yet. I need to go. I need to visit those locations, man. I need to go to Spain and see, what is it, Milan and Barcelona. I hear those great things about those places. Another one is France, of course. You got to go to Paris in France. And Italy, man. Got to go to Italy. Wait. Rome. Rome is in Italy, right? Got to see all those places, man. Got to get out there. Enjoy the world. See the world once in a while, man. What a great thing. Barcelona sucks. Okay. Good man. So I should go to Ibiza? Is it better? Which city would you recommend? Look up Ibiza? I will. I will do that, man, for sure. Most definitely. Paradisa, huh? Paradisa. It's a paradise. Mi español es no muy bueno, señor. Yeah, my Spanish is only from a Mexican influence. So, ¿cómo está usted, señor Santero? Are you doing good today? Muy bueno over here in old China. Muy bueno. ¿Dónde eres? Are you originally from Spain, Brother Santero? Frater Santero. Hermano Santero. Yeah, good stuff, man. I'm gonna run the invocation of Tahuti. Estoy bien, como siempre. Yeah, also well. Doing good, man. Doing good. Geht es gut? Danke. Und Sie? Yeah. Muy bien, muy bien. Let's go ahead and let me see. I got to remove that one, and then I'm going to run the invocation of Tahuti. Takes about 5 minutes, guys. Sit back and enjoy. If you know it, say it along with old Israel Ragardi. The invocation of Thoth.
Invocation of Thoth. Procul, o procul esti profani, ar lasti peda. In the name of the mighty and terrible one, I proclaim that I have banished the shells unto their habitations. I invoke Tahuti, the Lord of wisdom and of utterance, the God that cometh forth from the veil. O thou majesty of the Godhead, wisdom-crowned Tahuti, Lord of the gates of the universe, thee I invoke. O thou of the ibis head, thee I invoke. thou who wieldest the wand of double power, thee I invoke. Thou who bearest in thy left hand the rose and cross of light and life, thee I invoke. Thou whose head is as an emerald, and thy nemesis as the night sky blue, thee I invoke. Thou whose skin is of flaming orange as though it burned in a furnace, thee I invoke. Behold, I am yesterday, today, and the brother of tomorrow. I am born again and again. Mine is the unseen force whereof the gods are sprung, which is as life unto the dwellers in the watchtowers of the universe. I am the charioteer of the east, lord of the past and of the future. I see by mine own inward light, Lord of resurrection, who cometh forth from the dust, and my birth is from the house of death. O ye two divine hawks upon your pinnacles, who keep watch over the universe, ye who company the bier to the house of rest, who pilot the ship of wrong, ever advancing onwards the heights of heaven, Lord of the shrine which standeth in the center of the earth. Behold, he is in me, and I in him. Mine is the radiance wherein Ptah floateth over the firmament. I travel upon high. I tread upon the firmament of new. I raise up flashing flame with the lightning of mine eye, ever rushing on in the splendor of the daily glorified Ra, giving my life to the dwellers of earth. If I say, come up upon the mountains, the celestial waters shall flow at my word. For I am Ra incarnate, Kepra, created in the flesh. I am the eidolon of my father Tamu, lord of the city of the sun. The God who commands is in my mouth. The God of wisdom is in my heart. My tongue is the sanctuary of truth, and a guard sitteth upon my lips. My word is accomplished every day, and the desire of my heart realizes itself as that of Ptah when he createth his works. I am eternal, therefore all things are as my designs, therefore do all things obey my word. Therefore do thou come forth unto me from thine abode in the silence, unutterable wisdom, or light, or power. So, Hermes, Mercury, Odin, by whatever name I call thee, thou art still nameless to eternity. Come thou thou that vibratest between the light and the darkness, rising, descending, changing ever, yet ever the same. The sun is thy father, thy mother the moon. The wind hath borne thee in its bosom, and earth hath ever nourished the changeless godhead of thy youth. Come thou forth, I say, come thou forth, and make all spirits subject unto me, so that every spirit of the firmament and of the ether, upon the earth and under the earth, on dry land and in the water, of whirling air and of rushing fire, and every spell and scourge of God the vast one may be obedient unto me.
So it is commanded and confirmed. So mote it be. Amen. All right, there it is there, guys. That's the invocation of Tahuti. I hope you enjoyed that invocation of thought. Actually, got another little prayer queued up here, man. I think I'm going to play that here in a minute. I do see that my internet is getting throttled though, man. I've got like 1 bar on the transmission strength. I'm not even sure if it's staying connected at all or not. Yeah, the internet here in China is not great, you know. Just keep rolling with the punches. It is what it is. I remind you, Wayfarer, to make sure you hit that like button, guys. Appreciate that. That definitely helps out the channel, they say. And I think they're right. I think it really does help out the channel. The other thing is to check me out at buymeacoffee.com. That helps out the channel as well. Hey, Brian, Roy is here. Ray, is that Ray or Roy? Let me put on my reading glasses and see if I can see that. Oh, Jesus Christ. One thing after another, huh? I try to pick up my reading glasses and they get caught on everything in the basket. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, that is a Roy. Brian Roy is tuning in from somewhere in the U.S., I believe. He says, yo, Frank, what up? Yo, Santero. Glad to join you, gentlemen. Driving but listening. Okay, very good. Very good. Yeah, I have to put on the reading glasses, guys, occasionally. We got another prayer here. Here's a little prayer of me doing at my altar. This one's called the Invocation of Total Integration. Let's see where it is here. I've got the handle for it. There it is. The Invocation of Total Integration. I'm in Niagara Falls, Canada. Oh, wow, man. Yeah, the Niagara Falls area is really beautiful. I've been up there once. I had an uncle who lived in Buffalo, New York. He's originally from Long Island. In fact, he still had a house in Long Island, but then he had a business, I think, like an office in Buffalo. And he would stay out there part of the year and then spend the rest of his time on Long Island. He spent time in Manhattan too, but yeah, I don't know that area very well. I'm not an East Coast guy. I'm from California, so that's a little bit far for me to go. Let's check out this one, guys. Invocation of Total Integration.
Spontaneous manifestations of the subtle, wondrous universal law. As the original oneness expresses itself, gross and subtle energies become distinctly divided. My bodily cave is brightly illumined by the mysterious light from the 3 sources, my 3 Dantian bridge points leading to immortality. The powerful spirits of the 8 directions conjoin thy being with the true origin of life. By the absolute order of the divine Ling Bao in the highest 9th heaven, send the positive energies of Qianluo, Danna, Dunkan, and Taishuan to destroy my spiritual obstacles and debilitate any evil influence. This order is given by the highest sovereignty. It is a jade oracle from the subtle origin. I invoke with strong sincerity to drive away the demons and evils and lengthen my healthy years. The Chi of Tao is everlasting. So it is commanded and confirmed. So mote it be. Amen.
Yeah, there you have it there. That's good magic right there. I like that a lot. Hey, what happened to my picture? There I am. And I'm back. Yeah, I learned that invocation from studying with Master Nihua Qing's school called the Universal Society of the Integral Way. The Integral Way. Yeah, I was a member of his mentor program. I was teaching Chinese Qigong and Kung Fu and studying for a degree in traditional Chinese medicine. That was back in like the early 90s. Yeah, I was 20 at the time. And yeah, good magic. I had an opportunity to live with Master Ni, and I studied his material for a long time. I ultimately gave up on that path though, and then decided to study for a degree in literature instead, and then to go on to study to focus on the Chinese language as a kind of a major course of study. In fact, poetry was my key area of focus. So yeah, I like the old poetry. I'm going to share my screen, guys. We've been doing some readings in magic over the last few days, over the last few transmissions anyway. And so I'll go ahead and pop this up, see if that's going to work. I do not see it. Is it here? No, that didn't work. Okay, let me try again. Let me give it a second. Maybe it's just lagging. Might be lagging out. Let me play a little of this silver key while I organize things, guys.
Lunar Light Entertainment proudly presents a short story by Howard Philip Lovecraft, The Silver Key. When Randolph Carter was 30, he lost the key of the Gate of Dreams. Prior to that time, he had made up for the prosiness of life by nightly excursions to strange and ancient cities beyond space, and lovely, unbelievable garden lands across ethereal seas. But as middle age hardened upon him, he felt that these liberties slipping away little by little, until at last he was cut off altogether. No more could his galleys sail up the river Okranos past the gilded spires of Thran, or his elephant caravans tramp through perfumed jungles in Cled, where forgotten palaces with veined ivory columns sleep lovely and unbroken under the moon. He had read much of things as they are, and talked with too many people. Well-meaning philosophers had taught him to look into the logical relations of things, and analyze the processes which shape his thoughts and fancies. Wonder had gone away, and he had forgotten that all life is only a set of pictures in the brain, among which there is no difference betwixt those born of real things and those born of inward dreamings, and no cause to value the one above the other. Custom had dinned into his ears a...
Yeah, that's right. No cause to value the one above the other. Yeah, I dropped the link in case anybody wanted to come up, but I do believe that everybody's at work. Brian's driving. KJV's working. What about you, Santero? Do you like to jump on panel and chat? If so, man, hit the link. If not, yeah, I'm gonna jump over here to the readings. Let me see if I can drop that. It finally responded. Took a while for the old internet to respond. I think that is correct there. Looking good. Yeah. So I've been covering Garden of Pomegranates by Israel Regardie and The Art and Meaning of Magic, also by Israel Regardie. So I've been going over the last few transmissions. I'll just continue with this a little bit. It says that man holds the magical theory is a more or less complicated creature whose several faculties of feeling, sensation, and thinking have slowly been evolved in the course of aeons of evolution. It is fatal to ignore these faculties, for evidently they were evolved for some useful purpose in answer to some inner need. Hence, in aspiring towards divine union, surely a laudable goal, we must be quite sure that our method, whatever it is, takes into consideration those faculties and develops them to the stage where they too may participate in the experience. If evolution is held up as a suitable process, then the whole man must evolve, and not simply little bits or aspects of him, whilst other parts of his nature are left undeveloped at a primitive or infantile level of being. Moreover, these faculties must be so trained as to be able to take the enormous tension sure to be imposed upon them by so exalted, but nevertheless so powerful an attainment. Each faculty must be deliberately trained and carried stage by stage through various levels of human and cosmic consciousness, so that gradually they become accustomed to the high potential of energy, ideation, and inspiration that must inevitably accompany illumination and an extension of consciousness. Failure to consider such a viewpoint in terms of its dynamics undoubtedly must account for the catastrophes so frequently encountered in occult and mystical circles. Yeah, so that's what we're getting into, guys. We're getting into occult and mystical circles. Why didn't that respond? I clicked it. See if it responds. Okay, yeah, it responded there. Good magic. Yeah, good. If you guys can tune in and listen, that's good magic, man. I can certainly appreciate that. The next section I'm going to be going over is from the philosophy of Kabbalah, essentially esoteric. Yet the practical methods of esoteric and secular investigations are essentially identical, continual, and persistent experimentation, the endeavor to eliminate chance and error, and the effort to ascertain the constants and variables of the equations investigated. The one main difference is that they occupy themselves exclusively with the realms of research. So rather than just the realm of research, we're going to be getting into the realm of experimentation. So let me bring that back up and I'll show you. Yeah. So here it is here. Garden of Pomegranates by Israel Ragardi. Paragraph 1. The philosophy of Kabbalah. Formal academic philosophy glorifies the intellect, and thus makes research into what are, after all, incidentals. If we consider philosophy as the supreme means of investigating the problems of life and the universe, the Kabbalah makes the primary claim that the intellect contains within itself a principle of self-contradiction, and that, therefore, it is an unreliable instrument to use in the great quest for truth. So you'll notice here the difference in spelling with Qabalah. That's referencing the Hermetic Kabbalah, as opposed to the Jewish Kabbalah. Jewish Kabbalah is spelled Kabbalah, and the Hermetic Kabbalah is Qaba. So there, I'd like to point that out so that you're in the know, as it were. Numerous academic philosophers have likewise arrived at a similar conclusion. Some of the greater of these have despaired of ever devising a suitable method of transcending this limitation, and became skeptics. Others, seeing simply the solution, have seized upon intuition, and to be more accurate, the intellectual concept of intuition, leaving us, however, with no methods of checking and verifying that intuition, which in consequence is so liable to degenerate into mere guesswork, colored by personal inclination and abetted by gross wish phantasm. So this is one of the things you really need to be wary of when you study the occult, is degenerating into mere guesswork and becoming engrossed in the fantasy of the mind. Right, so something to be wary of. The two main methods of the traditional and esoteric Kabbalah are meditation, and here they refer to this as yoga, and more specifically, path working on the tree of life is known as Hermetic yoga, and then practical Kabbalah or magic. Yeah? So meditation is gathering the energy, magic is putting that energy into application in the universe and then yielding the results of that. By yoga is meant that rigorous system of mental and self-discipline, which has as its primary aim the absolute and complete control of the faculty's future thinking, thoughts, words, and actions. The Ruach, the ultimate object being to obtain the faculty with which to still the stream of thought at will. All right, turn off the internal monologue. Now, you don't have to do this all the time, right? Sometimes you need that internal monologue running. Sometimes you need it silenced. It's just up to you when whatever's requisite for your current situation. Above all, beyond the mind can manifest onto the stillness thus procured. The quiescence of the mental turbulence is the primary essential. With this faculty at command, the student is taught to exalt the mind by the various technical methods of magic until it overrides the normal limitations and barriers of its nature, ascending in a tremendous, unquenchable column of fiery-like ecstasy to the universal consciousness, with which it becomes united. Once having become at one with transcendental existence, it intuitively partakes of universal knowledge, which is considered to be a more reliable source of information than the rational introspection of the intellect or the experimental scientific investigation of matter can give. It is the tapping of the source of life itself, the fons et origo, fountain of originalness, right? Original energy of existence, the fountain of life, rather than a blind groping in the dark after confused symbols which alone appear on the so-called practical or rational plane of thought. Secular science, or positivism, has buried itself with the investigation of matter and the visible universe as perceived through the five senses. It affirms that by a study of phenomena, we are able to approach to the world as it really is, to the things in themselves. It is that system which affirms that apprehension is only a name for certain series of biological and chemical changes occurring in the certain of the contents of our material skulls, and that by an investigation of things as they appear to be, we can come to an understanding of their causes, what they really are. Continue natural rhythmic breathing. All right, deep breath in, hold for 3, 2, 1. Command yourself to relax. Absorb the information of the dissertation. Think about it critically. Compare it with what you already know to be true. The contrary philosophical argument of the idealistic schools is that in studying the laws of nature, we only study the laws of our own minds. That it would be quite simple to demonstrate that, after all, we really attach very little meaning to such ideas as matter, motion, and weight, etc., other than a purely idealistic one, that they are mere phases of our thought. Kabbalists and all the various schools of mystics generally begin from a still more absolute point of view, arguing that the whole controversy is purely a verbal one. For all such ontological propositions can, with a little ingenuity, be reduced to one form or another. There is, in consequence of this observation in the realm of modern philosophy, give me a second, that what is frankly considered to be an uncompromising deadlock. Kabbalists assert that reason is a weapon inadequate to the search for reality, since its nature is essentially self-contradictory. At this moment, I'd like everyone to contemplate that and consider it. Right? Let me check this here. Okay. I'll present that as a question to the group. He says, Kabbalists assert that reason alone is inadequate to the search for reality, since its nature is essentially self-contradictory. Yeah. So I might rephrase that. All right, there it is. There, I popped it in the chat room, guys. Let me know what you think. I think that the ultimate search for reality requires more than just reason and logic, but it needs to be balanced or harmonized with intuition and feeling. Yeah, many people say, often you hear this throughout the panelverse recently. Oh, you're just in your feelings. Well, you're a human person, and in order to make the appropriate choices, your spiritual evolution and your sensory evolution has come to a point, right? It's grown, it's complicated to a point where that's a very important factor in the human life. It's what drives the organic survival of the creature itself. So you can't stand alone in reason and logic. That's just one side of the tree of life, right? The side of severity. And then on the other side, you have feeling and beauty, intuition, gnosis, the ability to grok things, the artist gardener versus the analyst engineer. And that's what the hippocampus in the brain is all about, right? Oscillating and balancing these two factors of the mind. And so I think this is a more quintessent expression of it. I don't know. Let me know what you think, guys. Put it down in the comment box below. Leave it as a comment here on the video later. Let's get back into it. I'm sure he's going to say that, right? Hume and Kant, Hume and Kant, both saw this, but the one became a skeptic in the wildest sense of the term. And with the other, the conclusion hid itself behind a verbose transcendentalism. Spencer, too, saw it, but tried to gloss it over and to bury it beneath the ponderousness of his erudition. The Kabbalah, in the words of one of its most zealous advocates, settles the dispute by laying a finger on the weak point. Also, reason is a lie. For therefore is a factor infinite and unknown. For there is a factor infinite and unknown. And all their words are skew-wise. The universe cannot be explained by reason. I mean, obviously, it doesn't function in a reasonable way, all right? Its nature is obviously irrational. As remarked by Professor Henri Bergson, our thought in its purely logical form is incapable of presenting the true nature of life. And the intellectual faculty is characterized by a natural inability to comprehend life. Professor Arthur S. Eddington has also observed that the ultimate elements in a theory of the world must be of a nature impossible to define in terms recognizable to the mind. A more recent statement by one who is considered an excellent exponent of modern scientific opinion is found in What Dare I Think by Julian Huxley. There is no reason why the universe is perfect. There is, indeed, no reason why it should be rational. One of the paradoxes of the intellect is that despite the fact that our knowledge is purely phenomenal, nevertheless, even that knowledge is of no real depth. For instance, the judgment A is a meaningless tautology. In order to be significant, our thought must pass beyond the bare identity of an object with itself, but it must not pass to something which has not in common with the object. Thus, if we assert A equals B, the judgment is false, since we pass from A to B, the latter having nothing in common with A. It is obvious, however, that a definition of this unknown A can only be achieved by saying either A equals B or A equals CD. In the first case, the idea of B is really implicit in A. Thus, we have learned nothing. And if not so, the statement is false. One simply defines unknown in terms of, gotta adjust the page here, guys. One defined in terms of another, and nothing is gained. In the second case, C and D themselves require definition as EF and GH, respectively. The process becomes extended, but it is bound to the end by the eventual exhaustion of the alphabet. Y equals ZA. In short, one gets no further than A equals A. The relation of the whole series of equations then becomes apparent, and the conclusion to which one is forced is that each and every term is a thing in itself, unknown, though to some extent apprehensible by intuition. Yeah, I've been arguing this since day one. I think it's called E prime language. I believe that's it. That we should strive, that are in our attempts toward accuracy and clarity, one should endeavor to not have A is B, but to say that A can be likened to B in some way. Yeah. So the man is not a skeptic. The man engages in skepticism, or is skeptical of, right? And even there it is again, is. So I tend towards skepticism of, rather than being a diehard, skeptic. I've adapted this malleable way of thinking a long time ago. In fact, when I was very, very young. And it brought me a lot of trouble with the world, because the world likes everything really black and white and nearly devoid of nuance. Yeah, they you'll hear them. And when I say they, I just mean everyone out there. You hear them constantly making these pig-headed assertions that this is that or the other thing, and it's just not true. All right, let me see if I can pull that page up. I think I just pulled it up the other day, so I might still have it active on my Windows. I don't know, though, so I'll check really quick. No, I got the Myth of the Privacy Paradox up. Celestial Inspiration. Definition of Magic by Aleister Crowley. Israel Regardi. Nah. That's okay. I'll find it later and pull something together. Guys, I'm going to take a short break real quick, and I'm going to run a little more of the Silver Key for you to enjoy while I do so.
Tangibly and physically exists, and had made him secretly ashamed to dwell in visions. Wise men told him his simple fancies were inane and childish, and he believed it because he could see that they might easily be so. What he failed to recall was that the deeds of reality are just as inane and childish, and even more absurd because their actors persist in fancying them full of meaning and purpose, as the blind cosmos grinds aimlessly on from nothing to something and from something back to nothing again, neither heeding nor knowing the wishes or existence of the minds that flicker for a second now and then in the darkness. They had chained him down to things that are, and had then explained the workings of those things till mystery had gone out of the world, when he complained and longed to escape into twilight realms where magic molded all the little vivid fragments and prized associations of his mind into vistas of breathless expectancy and unquenchable delight. They had turned him instead toward the newfound prodigies of science, bidding him find wonder in the atom's vortex and mystery in the sky's dimensions. And when he had failed to find these boons in things whose laws are known and measurable, they told him he lacked imagination and was immature because he preferred dream illusions to the illusions of our physical creation. So Carter had tried to do as others did and pretended that the common events and emotions of earthly minds were more important than the fantasies of rare and delicate souls. He did not dissent when they told him that the animal pain of a stuck pig or dyspeptic plowman in real life is a greater thing than the peerless beauty of Narath with its 100 carven gates and domes of Chalcedony, which he dimly remembered from his dreams, and under their guidance he cultivated a painstaking sense of pity and tragedy. Once in a while, though, he could not help seeing how shallow, fickle, and meaningless all human aspirations are, and how emptily our real impulses contrast with those pompous ideals we profess to hold. Then he would have recourse to the polite laughter they had taught him to use against the extravagance and artificiality of dreams, for he saw that the daily life of our world is every inch as extravagant and artificial, and far less worthy of respect because of its poverty in beauty and its silly reluctance to admit its own lack of reason and purpose. In this way he became a kind of humorist, for he did not see that even humor is empty in a mindless universe devoid of any true standard of consistency or inconsistency. In the first days of his bondage he had turned to the gentle churchly faith endeared to him by the naive trust of his fathers, for thence stretched mystic avenues which seemed to promise escape from life. Only on closer view did he mark the starved fancy and beauty, the stale and prosy triteness, and the owlish gravity and grotesque claims of solid truth, which reigned boresomely and overwhelmingly among most of its professors, or feel to the fool the awkwardness with which it sought to keep alive as literal fact the outgrown fears and guesses of a primal race confronting the unknown. It wearied Carter to see how solemnly people tried to make earthly reality out of old myths, which every step of their boasted science confuted, and this misplaced seriousness killed the attachment he might have kept for the ancient creeds, had they been content to offer the sonorous rites and emotional outlets in their true guise of ethereal fantasy. But when he came to study those who had thrown off the old myths, he found them even more ugly than those who had not. They did not know that beauty lies in harmony, and that loveliness of life has no standard amidst an aimless cosmos, save only its harmony with the dreams and the feelings which gone before and blindly molded our little spheres out of the rest of chaos.
Yeah, I think that right there was a direct reference to the Hermetic Kabbalah. Yeah, those spheres that have molded our reality out of chaos. Ordo Abkeo, well, might be what he was pointing at. It's a really good one, man. That's The Silver Key by Howard Phillips Lovecraft. Good stuff. Yeah, we're getting into the Garden of Pomegranates, guys, by Israel Regardie. If you've read it, then you know it's a bit of a thing, right? Goes on to say there are several proofs of this, the simplest of which is perhaps as follows, showing that the most obvious statement cannot bear analysis. A simple question is, what is vermilion? That vermilion is red is undeniable, no doubt, but quite meaningless nevertheless, for each of the two terms must be defined by means of at least two others of which the same are true. So simply an inquiry as why is sugar sweet involves a vast multitude of very, very highly complicated chemical researches, each one of which eventually leads to that blindest of all blank walls. What is matter? What is the perceiving mind? So in my mind, it's simple enough to say sugar is sweet, right? most of the time, sugar takes on the qualities of sweetness to a human being, right? We may continue further if we wish and ask, what is the moon? Science, let us facetiously suppose, replies, green cheese. For our one moon, we have now two distinct ideas, and all simplicity vanishes and recedes into the darkness. We have greenness and cheesiness. The one depends on the light of the sun, the sense apparatus of the optic nerves and organs, and 1,000 of other things. The latter on bacteria, fermentation, and the nature of a cow. Then we continue to split hairs and juggle words. Not but hairs and words, juggling and splitting. And we have got no single question answered in any ultimate sense at all. You can see where this is going, right? So funny. So delightful.
Caravans tramp through perfumed jungles in Cled, where forgotten palaces with veined ivory columns sleep lovely and unbroken under the moon. He had read much of things as they are and talked with too many people. Well-meaning philosophers had taught him to look into the logical relations of things and analyze the processes which shape his thoughts and fancies. Wonder had gone away, and he had forgotten that all life is only a set of pictures in the brain, among which there is no difference betwixt those born of real things and those born of inward dreamings.
There you have it there. That's really something, right? All of it is some sort of chemically produced picture in the brain that we're learning now is maybe seated in the DMT of the pineal gland. Yeah. Our brain is using about 50% of its power to process visual imagery. And why should those born of the waking reality be any more important than those born of the dreaming mind? This is the essential question in The Silver Key. We're following the adventures of Randolph Carter.
And no cause to value the one above the other. Custom had dinned into his ears a superstitious reverence for that which tangibly and physically exists, and had made him secretly ashamed to dwell in visions. Wise men told him his simple fancies were inane and childish, and he believed it because he could see that they might easily be so. What he failed to recall was that the deeds of reality are just as inane and childish, and even more absurd because their actors persist in fancying them full of meaning and purpose, as the blind cosmos grinds aimlessly on from nothing to something and from something back to nothing again, neither heeding nor knowing the wishes or existence of the minds that flicker for a second now and then in the darkness. They had chained him down to things that are, and had then explained the workings of those things till mystery had gone out of the world, when he complained and longed to escape into twilight realms where magic molded all the little vivid fragments and prized associations of his mind into vistas of breathless expectancy and unquenchable delight. They had turned him instead toward the newfound prodigies of science, bidding him find wonder in the atom's vortex and mystery in the sky's dimensions. And when he had failed to find these boons in things whose laws are known and measurable, they told him he lacked imagination and was immature because he preferred dream illusions to the illusions of our physical creation.
There you have it. Dream illusions to the illusions of our physical creation. All right? What you perceive as shadow and illusion is actually reality. And the reality that you perceive oftentimes is actually shadow and illusion. All right, I think one of the first great philosophers that brought this idea forward was Socrates, and then Plato's ruminations into Socrates' ideas about the realm of forms or realm of ideas. Hey, we got a visitor to the ideas room, one King Shen. Yeah, anytime these days when I see somebody with king in their name, I'm a little bit apprehensive. Not to worry though. Greetings and salutations, Senor Shen. Good to see you. What is up?
So Carter had tried to do as others did and pretended that the common events and emotions of earthly minds were more important than the fantasies of rare and delicate souls. He did not dissent when they told him that the animal pain of a stuck pig or dyspeptic plowman in real life is a greater thing than the peerless beauty of Narath with its 100 carven gates and domes of Chalcedony, which he dimly remembered from his dreams, and under their guidance he cultivated a painstaking sense of pity and tragedy. Once in a while, though, he could not help seeing how shallow, fickle, and meaningless all human aspirations are, and how emptily our real impulses contrast with those pompous ideals we profess to hold. Then he would have recourse to the polite laughter they had taught him to use against the extravagance and artificiality of dreams.
Yeah, so here he's really talking about the academics, right? The intelligentsia at the universities. This is truly the way they engage in forming the minds of our youth when they take all mystery out of the world. Not a good thing, in my opinion. That's why I work in academia. And okay, cool. Thank you, King Shen. Mother's maiden name is King, and father's name is Shen. King and Shen. Very good. Good to see you. Welcome to the transmission. We're at the 1 hour mark, and I'm trying to get this to shift. There it goes. And we're reading up on A Garden of Pomegranates by Israel Regardie and listening to The Silver Key by H.P. Lovecraft. It says, there is therefore no possible escape from this bottomless pit of confusion, save by the development of a faculty of mind, which shall not be manifestly inadequate in any of these ways. We must employ means other than and superior to ratiocination. We thus approach the problem of the development of the neshkama intuition. And it is here that the Kabbalah differs in method and content from secular science and academic philosophy. Yet the progress of secular science in the last 30 years certainly brings it nearer to Kabbalistic conception of things. The old sanctions of a scientific mechanism have nearly all disappeared, and the terms which appeared to the Victorians so simple, objective, and intelligible, such as matter, energy, space, etc., have completely failed to resist analysis. A few modern thinkers, seeing clearly the absolute debacle in which the old positivism science was bound to lead them, the breaking up of this icy expanse of frozen thought, determined at all costs to find a new modus vivendi for Athena. This necessity was emphasized in the most surprising way by the result of the Michelson-Morley experiments, when physics itself calmly and frankly offered a contradiction in terms. It was not the metaphysicians this time who were picking holes in a vacuum. It was the mathematicians and the physicists who found the ground completely cut away from under their feet. It was not enough to replace the geometry of Euclid by those of Riemann and Lobachevsky. Russian names are not typically in my purvey. Lobachevsky, and the mechanics of Newton by those of Einstein. So long as any of the axioms of the old thought and the definitions of its terms survived, they deliberately abandoned positivism and materialism for an indeterminate mysticism, creating a new mathematical philosophy and a new logic, wherein infinite, or rather transfinite, ideas might be made commensurable with those of ordinary thought in the forlorn hope that all might live happily ever after. In short, to use a Kabbalistic nomenclature, they found it incumbent upon themselves to adopt for inclusion of terms such as ruach, the intellect, concepts which are properly only to neshkama, the organ and faculty of direct spiritual appreciation, apperception, and intuition. This same process took place in philosophy years earlier. Had the dialectic of Hegel been only half understood, the major portion of philosophical speculation, from the schoolmen to Kant's perception of the antinomities of reason, would have been thrown overboard. All right, that brings us to the next section. And I just noticed that my internet strength has dropped nearly to 0 again, which I find interesting. This is the Frank Monday channel. Welcome back, Wizard, Warrior, Wanderer, Wayfarer, and Wildcat alike. I'm broadcasting to you from atop a crystal pyramidion in the central kingdom of the Celestial Dragon, Twilight Zone, Old Peking, far behind the bamboo firewall. If it's your first time, don't let it be your last time. Please hit the like button for the YouTube algobots. Keep them barking like Pavlov's dog. That certainly helps out the channel. Make sure you check me out on buymeacoffee.com/Frank Monday. Put a little something in the tip jar. That'll put the lead in my pencil and the pep in my step. With no further ado, I'm going to play a couple more minutes of the Silver Key here while I let my voice rest momentarily. Remove and add to stage.
Life of our world is every inch as extravagant and artificial, and far less worthy of respect because of its poverty and beauty, and its silly reluctance to admit its own lack of reason and purpose. In this way he became a kind of humorist, for he did not see that even humor is empty in a mindless universe devoid of any true standard of consistency or inconsistency. In the first days of his bondage he had turned to the gentle churchly faith endeared to him by the naive trust of his fathers, for thence stretched mystic avenues which seemed to promise escape from life. Only on closer view did he mark the starved fancy and beauty, the stale and prosy triteness, and the owlish gravity and grotesque claims of solid truth, which reigned boresomely and overwhelmingly among most of its professors, or feel to the fool the awkwardness with which it sought to keep alive as literal fact the outgrown fears and guesses of a primal race confronting the unknown. It wearied Carter to see how solemnly people tried to make earthly reality out of old myths, which every step of their boasted science confuted. And this misplaced seriousness killed the attachment he might have kept for the ancient creeds, had they been content to offer the sonorous rites and emotional outlets in their true guise of ethereal fantasy. But when he came to study those who had thrown off the old myths, he found them even more ugly than those who had not. They did not know that beauty lies in harmony, and that loveliness of life has no standard amidst an aimless cosmos, save only its harmony with the dreams and the feelings which gone before and blindly molded our little spheres out of the rest of chaos. They did not see that good and evil and beauty and ugliness are only ornamental fruits of perspective, whose sole value lies in their linkage to what chance made our fathers think and feel, and whose finer details are different for every race and culture. Instead, they either denied these things altogether or transferred them to the crude, vague instincts which they shared with the beasts and peasants, so that their lives were dragged malodorously out in pain, ugliness, and disproportion, yet filled with a ludicrous pride at having escaped from something no more unsound than that which still held them. They had traded the false gods of fear and blind piety for those of license and anarchy. Carter did not taste deeply of these modern freedoms, for their cheapness and squalor sickened a spirit-loving beauty alone, while his reason rebelled at the flimsy logic with which their champions tried to gild brute impulse with a sacredness stripped from the idols they had discarded. He saw that most of them, in common with their cast-off priestcraft, could not escape from the delusion that life has a meaning apart from that which men dream into it, and could not lay aside the crude notion of ethics and obligations beyond those of beauty, even when all nature shrieked of its unconsciousness and impersonal unmorality in the light of their scientific discoveries. Warped and bigoted with preconceived illusions of justice, freedom, and consistency, they cast off the old lore and the old ways with the old beliefs, nor ever stopped to think that the lore and those ways were the sole makers of their present thoughts and judgments, and the sole guides and standards in a meaningless universe without fixed aims or stable points of reference. Having lost these artificial settings, their lives grew void of direction and dramatic interest, till at length they strove to drown their ennui and bustle and pretended usefulness, noise and excitement, barbaric display and animal sensation. When these things paled, disappointed, or grew nauseous through revulsion, they cultivated irony and bitterness and found fault with the social order. Never.
Yeah, isn't that so interesting what he said right there? I mean, it's where we're at now. This was written, 100 years ago. And many of the ideas I'm about to look at next, this book was published, I believe, in 1930, if I'm correct. And again, 100 years ago, these guys were already seeing this tendency, this propensity in society and among most people. And we still haven't overcome it. I mean, it's where people are. Most people are today. I'm so lucky that as a young man, I had the opportunity to read and absorb many of these thoughts and ideas, which the average individual just doesn't have access to. I hope this keeps its place at 8:07, and then we'll jump back to it in a moment as we look a little deeper at A Garden of Pomegranates by Israel Regardie. Okay, I got to remove that one first, and then I got to add that one back, and then pop it in the old window. There it is there. So here's where we left off with Israel Regardie's A Garden of Pomegranates. C.G. Jung, the eminent European psychoanalyst, writes in Wilhelm's Secrets of the Golden Flower. Therefore, I can only take the reaction which begins in the West against the intellect in favor of intuition as a mark of cultural advance, a widening of consciousness beyond the too narrow limits set by a tyrannical intellect. Very good. Yeah, if you haven't read The Secret of the Golden Flower, you definitely have to. It's a good one. Again, a book I read when I was like a teenager. Obviously, I didn't understand it. I read it again when I was like 25. I read it again when I was like 35. And then again at 45. And those books are something you have to read every decade. Here, this book, Garden of Pomegranates, I got my first copy of it when I was like 15. All right. So here we are at 55, reading it again for the first time. Every decade, man. Because a lot of these problems haven't been overcome yet. Let's see, am I still transmitting? Yeah, looking good. Looking good. Garden of Pomegranates, guys, by Israel Regardie. Incidentally, one of the greatest difficulties experienced by the philosopher, a difficulty almost insurmountable, but one which continually tends to increase rather than diminish with the advance in knowledge, is this. It is practically impossible to gain any clear intellectual comprehension of the meaning of philosophical terms employed. Every thinker has his own private conception of and meaning for even such common and universally used terms as soul and mind. And in the vast majority of cases, he does not so much as suspect that other writers may employ the same term under a different connotation. Even technical writers, those who sometimes take the trouble of defining their terms before using them, are too often at variance with each other. The diversity is very great, as stated above. In the case of the word soul, we find one writer predicating of the soul that it is A, B, and C, while his fellow students protest vehemently that it is nothing of the sort, but in fact it is D, E, and F. However, let us suppose for a moment that by some miracle we obtain a clear idea of the meaning of the word. The trouble has merely begun, for there immediately arises the question of the relation of one term to the others. In view of this continual source of misunderstanding, it is clearly necessary to establish a fundamental and universal language for the communication of ideas. One understands with bitter approval the sad outburst by the aged Fichte. If I had my life to live over again, the first thing I would do would be to invent an entirely new system of symbols whereby to convey my ideas. I guess that's why I took it upon myself to study Chinese in such depth, because it is a brand new system of symbols to convey ideas, and it's much more clear and direct. And in fact, you don't even have to understand the sound of the Chinese characters to understand them. You just have to know how Chinese characters are put together pictographically. They often include one phonetic element, but most of the elements in a Chinese character are pictographical and directly related to idea. As a matter of fact, had he but known this, certain people, principally some of the early Kabbalists, among whom we may include Raymond Lully, William Postal, and so on, etc., it should be et al., right, had actually attempted this great work for constructing a coherent system. Those which were coherent were, sad to say, hardly comprehended or subscribed to. It is sometimes claimed that the Buddhist terminology, as contained in the Abhidhamma, provides a sufficiently complete philosophical alphabet. While there is much to be said in favor of the Buddhist system, we cannot wholly concur with this opinion for the following reasons. And remember, these guys, none of these guys had really studied Taoist cosmology or Taoist systems of philosophy to any great extent at that point. It was all very new to the Western world, and maybe the only things available at that time were Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching, Zhuangzi, and his self-named book or canon of material, which is just elucidation on the Tao, and then maybe Sunzi and maybe some Mengzi, but that was pretty much it. These days, there's quite a bit more available to the diligent student. Firstly, he says, the actual words are barbarously long, impossibly so for the average European. Yeah, that's in the Buddhist, Indian Buddhism. Whereas in Taoism, they're all very short, right? Single syllable, monosyllabic words. Some of them bisyllabic, but very few are trisyllabic. They do have very interesting tetragrams, though, in Chinese. In fact, most of their language in Chinese, most of the wisdom tongue of it is tetragrams, right? Chu Ru Ping An, Da Ji Da Li, right? So on and so forth. I could just go on forever. Secondly, an understanding of that system demands acquiescence in the Buddhist doctrinalia, which we are not prepared to give. Thirdly, the meaning of the terms is not clear, precise, and comprehensive as could be wished. There is most certainly a great deal of pedantry, disputed matter, and confusion. Only recently I learned that Mrs. Rhys Davids has issued a book on Buddhist origins, in which the question, among others, is raised by her to the correct translation of the meaning of the Pali word Dhamma, whether it implies to law, conscience, life, or simply the Buddhist doctrine. Really, it mostly, from my understanding, it just applies to Buddhist doctrine. Fourthly, the terminology is exclusively psychological and takes no account of extra-Buddhistic ideas, and it bears but little relation to the general order of the universe. It might, of course, be supplemented by Hindu or other terminology, but to do so would immediately introduce more numerous elements of controversy. We should at once be lost in endless discussion as to whether Nibbana was nirvana, and as to whether extinction or something else was implied, and so on, forever and ever, ad nauseum, ad infinitum, and with no end. The system of Kabbalah, whose terms, as we shall see, are largely symbolic, is, of course, superficially open to this last objection. But because it is very largely symbolic, it has the best sanction of those who are considered eminent authorities in the sciences. For the whole of modern science occupies itself with various symbols by which it endeavors to comprehend the physical world. Symbols beyond which, however, it frankly confesses itself unable to pass. An illuminating remark occurs in Professor Eddington's 1928 Swartmouth lecture, Science and the Unseen World. I can only say that physical science has turned its back on all such models, regarding them now rather as a hindrance to the apprehension of the truth behind phenomena. And if today you ask a physicist what he has finally made out of the aether or the electron to be, the answer will not be a description of terms of billiard balls or flying wheels or anything concrete. He will point instead to a number of symbols and a set of mathematical equations which they satisfy. What do the symbols stand for? The mysterious reply is that given that physics is indifferent to that, it has no means of probing beneath the symbolism. To understand the phenomena of the physical world, it is necessary to know the equations which the symbols obey, but not the nature of that which is being symbolized. Sir James Jeans confirms this view of the use of symbols, for on page 141 of his The Mysterious Universe, he writes, "The makings of models or pictures to explain mathematical formula and the phenomena they describe is not a step towards, but a step away from reality. In brief, a mathematical formula can never tell us what a thing is, but only how it behaves. It can only specify an object through its properties." All right, we're getting a little closer to the end here, guys, of this section. It's got 1, 2, 3, looks like 3 solid paragraphs. We'll take a short break whilst I play a little more of the Silver Key and let my voice rest momentarily. About 15 to 20 minutes at a time is all my voice can really handle these days. And yeah, there it is there.
And pretended usefulness, noise and excitement, barbaric display and animal sensation. When these things pale, aims or stable points of reference. Having lost these artificial settings, their lives grew void of direction and dramatic interest, till at length they strove to drown their ennui in bustle and pretended usefulness, noise and excitement, barbaric display and animal sensation. When these things paled, disappointed, or grew nauseous through revulsion, they cultivated irony and bitterness, and found fault with the social order. Never could they realize that their brute foundations were as shifting, as contradictory as the gods of their elders, and that the satisfaction of one moment is the bane of the next. Calm, lasting beauty comes only in dream, and this solace the world had thrown away, when in its worship of the real, it threw away the secrets of childhood and innocence. Amidst this chaos of hollowness and unrest, Carter tried to live as befitted a man of keen thought and good heritage. With his dreams fading under the ridicule of the age, he could not believe in anything, but the love of harmony kept him close to the ways of his race and station. He walked impassive through the cities of men, and sighed because no vista seemed fully real, because every flash of yellow sunlight on tall roofs, and every glimpse of balustrated plazas in the first lamps of evening served only to remind him of dreams he had once known, and to make him homesick for the ethereal lands he no longer knew how to find. Travel was only a mockery, and even the Great War stirred him but little, though he served from the first in the Foreign Legion of France. For a while he sought friends, but soon grew weary of the crudeness of their emotions, and the sameness and earthiness of their visions. He felt vaguely glad that all his relatives were distant and out of touch with him, for they could not have understood his mental life. That is, none but his grandfather and great uncle Christopher could, and they were long dead. Then he began once more the writing of books, which he had left off when dreams first failed him, but here, too, was there no satisfaction or fulfillment, for the touch of earth was upon his mind, and he could not think of lovely things as he had done of yore. Ironic humor dragged down all the twilight minarets he reared, and the earthly fear of improbability blasted all the delicate and amazing flowers in his fairy gardens. The convention of assumed pity spilt mawkishness on his characters, while the myth of an important reality and significant human events and emotions debased all his high fantasy into thin-veiled allegory and cheap social satire. His new novels were successful as his old ones had never been, and because he knew how empty they must be to please an empty herd, he burned them and ceased writing. They were very graceful novels in which he urbanely laughed at the dreams he lightly sketched, but he saw that their sophistication had sapped all their life away. It was after this that he cultivated deliberate illusion and dabbled in the notions of the bizarre and the eccentric as an antidote for the commonplace. Most of these, however, soon showed their poverty and barrenness, and he saw that the popular doctrines of occultism are as dry and inflexible as those of science, yet without even the slender palliative of truth to redeem them. Gross stupidity, falsehood, and muddled thinking are not dream, and form no escape from life to a mind trained above their level. So Carter bought stranger books and sought out deeper and more terrible men of fantastic erudition, delving into arcana of consciousness that few have trod, and learning things about the secret pits of life, legend, and immemorial antiquity which disturbed him ever afterward. He decided to live on a rarer plane, and furnished his Boston home to suit his changing moods. One room for each, hung in appropriate colors, furnished with befitting books and objects, and provided with sources of the proper sensations of light, heat, sound, taste, and odor.
So you can see that he's setting up a magical study, right? A magical space. The proper color, the proper accoutrements, the proper scents, the proper chemicals, right? All the proper things, the proper textures. You set it up. You have an area where, the sedan is, and Malkuth, and then you have an area with the desk for Hod, and you have a gardened section for Netzach, and then an altar of great beauty for Tifereth, right? You have a location for Gebura and Hesed, Keter, Hokmah, and Bina. All these accoutrements. You have the secret space for Da'ath. Yeah. So we're learning more about the Kabbalistic mindset here. And again, not the Judaic Kabbalah, distinguished from the Hermetic Kabbalah. Okay. We're going to get back into it, guys. We've got to finish off this chapter so that we know where we stand when we launch our next transmission, right? We'll be looking at the 10 Sephiroths of the Tree of Life. So here it is here. Last little section here to finish us off for the evening. The Kabbalist, therefore, is in no fear of attack from hostile sources because of his use of symbols. For the real basis of the Holy Kabbalah, the 10 Sephiros and the 22 paths, is mathematically sound and definite. We can easily discard the theological and dogmatic interpretations of the ancient Rabbanim as useless and not affecting this real basis, and refer everything in the universe to the fundamental system of pure number. Its symbols will be intelligible to all rational minds in an identical sense, since the relations obtaining between these symbols are fixed by nature. It's a powerful thing to say, especially this part here, right? And this part here, theological and dogmatic interpretations of the ancient useless. The real basis, the fundamental system of pure number. It is this consideration which has led to the adoption of the Kabbalistic tree of life as the basis of the universal philosophical alphabet. The apologia for this system, if such be needed, is, as has already been stated, that our purest conceptions are symbolized in mathematics. Bertrand Russell, Cantor, Poincaré, Einstein, and others have been hard at work at replacing the Victorian empiricism by an intelligible, coherent interpretation of the universe by means of mathematical ideas and symbols. Modern conceptions of mathematics, chemistry, and physics are sheer paradox to the plain man who thinks of matters, for example, as something that he can knock up against. There appears to be no doubt nowadays that the ultimate nature of science in any of its branches will be purely abstract, almost of a Kabbalistic character, one might say. Even though it may never be officially dominated by the Kabbalah, it is natural and proper to represent the cosmos or any part of it or its operations in any of its aspects by the symbols of pure number. The 10 numbers and the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, with their traditional and rational correspondence, also taking into consideration their numerical and geometrical relations, afford us a coherent, systematic groundwork for our alphabet, a basis sufficiently rigid for our foundation, yet sufficiently elastic for our superstructure. There you have it, guys. That was chapter 2 of A Garden of Pomegranates, and it sets up the groundwork, as it were, for the next section that we're going to get into, the Sephiros. Okay. In the previous chapter, it was suggested that the Kabbalah is the most suitable system for the basis of a magical alphabet, to which we shall be able to refer the sum total of all of our knowledge and experience, religious, philosophical, and scientific. The Kabbalistic alphabet is an alphanumeric system. As we shall proceed to explain, an elaborate system of attributions and correspondences, a convenient method of classification, enabling the philosopher to docket his experiences and ideas as he obtains them. It is comparable to a filing cabinet of 32 jackets in which an extensive system of information is filed. First caveat here. It would be fallacious for the student to expect a concrete definition of everything which the cabinet contains. That is a sheer impossibility for quite obvious reasons. Each student must work for himself once given the method of putting the whole of his mental and moral constitution into these 32 filing jackets. The necessity for personal work becomes apparent when one realizes that it is normal business procedure. For instance, one would not purchase a filing cabinet with the names of all past, present, and future correspondents already indexed. It becomes quite evident that the Kabbalistic cabinet has a system of letters and numbers meaningless in themselves. But as the files are completed, ready to take on a meaning different for each student. As experience increased, each letter and number would receive fresh ascensions of meaning and significance. And by adopting this orderly arrangement, we would be enabled to grasp our inner life much more comprehensively than might otherwise be the case. The object of the theoretical Kabbalah, insofar as this thesis is concerned, is to enable the student to do three main things. First, to analyze every idea in terms of the tree of life. Second, to trace a necessary connection and relation between every and any class of ideas by referring this to this standard of comparison. Third, to translate any unknown system of symbolism into terms of any known one by this means. There you have it, guys. That's going to be quite a bit of work for today. I hope my transmission was coming through clearly. Let's go ahead and let me see where this is at. Yeah, it looks like it's about right. I'll let my voice rest for a couple of minutes as I play a little more of the Silver Key, and then we'll come back to finish off the show. Good magic. Good looking out, everyone. Appreciate you being here.
In the South, who was shunned and feared for the blasphemous things he read in prehistoric books and clay tablets smuggled from India and Arabia. Him he visited, living with him and sharing his studies for 7 years, till horror overtook them one midnight in an unknown and archaic graveyard, and only one emerged where two had entered. Then he went back to Arkham, the terrible witch-haunted old town of his forefathers in New England, and had experiences in the dark amidst the hoary willows and tottering gambrel roofs, which made him seal forever certain pages in the diary of a wild-minded ancestor. But these horrors took him only to the edge of reality, and were not of the true dream country he had known in youth, so that at 50 he despaired of any rest or contentment in a world grown too busy for beauty and too shrewd for dream. Having perceived at last the hollowness and futility of real things, Carter spent his days in retirement and in wistful, disjointed memories of his dream-filled youth. He thought it rather silly that he bothered to keep on living at all, and got from a South American acquaintance a very curious liquid to take him to oblivion without suffering. Inertia and force of habit, however, caused him to defer action, and he lingered indecisively among thoughts of old times, taking down the strange hangings from his walls and refitting the house as it was in his early boyhood, purple panes, Victorian furniture, and all. With the passage of time, he became almost glad he had lingered, for his relics of youth and his cleavage from the world made life and sophistication seem very distant and unreal. So much so that a touch of magic and expectancy stole back into his nightly slumbers. For years those slumbers had known only such twisted reflections of everyday things as the commonest slumbers know. But now there returned a flicker of something stranger and wilder, something of vaguely awesome imminence, which took the form of tinsely clear pictures from his childhood days, and made him think of little inconsequential things he had long forgotten. He would often awake calling for his mother and grandfather, both in their graves for a quarter of a century. Then one night his grandfather reminded him of a key. The gray old scholar, as vivid as in life, spoke long and earnestly of their ancient line, and of the strange visions of the delicate and sensitive men who composed it. He spoke of the flame-eyed crusader who learnt wild secrets of the Saracens that held him captive, and of the first Sir Randolph Carter who studied magic when Elizabeth was queen. He spoke, too, of that Edmund Carter who had just escaped hanging in the Salem witchcraft trials, and who he had placed in an antique box a great silver key handed down from his ancestors. Before Carter awakened, the gentle visitant had told him where to find that box, that carved oak box of archaic wonder whose grotesque lid no hand had raised for 2 centuries. In the dust and shadows of the great attic he found it, remote and forgotten, at the back of a drawer in a tall chest. It was about a foot square, and its Gothic carvings were so fearful that he did not marvel no person since Edmund Carter had dared to open it. It gave forth no noise when shaken, but was mystic with the scent of unremembered spices. That it held a key was indeed only a dim legend, and Randolph Carter's father had never known such a box existed. It was bound in rusty iron, and no means was provided for working the formidable lock. Carter vaguely understood that he would find within it some key to the lost Gate of Dreams, but of where and how to use it, his grandfather had told him nothing. An old servant forced the carven lid, shaking as he did so at the hideous faces leering from the blackened wood, and at some unplaced familiarity. Inside, wrapped in a discolored parchment, was a huge key of tarnished silver, covered with cryptical arabesques, but of any legible explanation there was none. The parchment was voluminous, and held only the strange hieroglyphs of an unknown tongue written with an antique reed. Carter recognized the characters as those he had seen on a certain papyrus scroll belonging to that terrible scholar of the South, who had vanished one midnight in a nameless cemetery. The man had always shivered when he read the scroll, and Carter shivered now, but he cleaned the key and kept it by him nightly in its aromatic box of ancient oak. His dreams were meanwhile increasing in vividness, and though showing him none of the strange cities and incredible gardens of the old days, were assuming a definite cast whose purpose could not be mistaken. They were calling him back along the years, and with the mingled wills of all his fathers were pulling him towards some hidden and ancestral source. Then he knew he must go into the past and merge himself with old things, and day after day he thought of the hills to the north, where haunted Arkham and the rushing Miskatonic and the lonely rustic homestead of his people lay. In the brooding fire of autumn, Carter took the old remembered way past graceful lines of rolling hills.
All right, guys, that's going to finish this up for there. I'll see if I can drop that. Yeah, I was able to drop it. Good. So I'm going to finish off tonight's transmission with a quick hypnotic induction. If you enjoy that kind of thing, find yourself a comfortable place to chill while I go through this. And yeah, just relax and enjoy. My YouTube isn't responding, or not YouTube, my internet rather, keeps blanking out, screwing around. Not exactly sure why it does that, but that's okay. You know what? Just relax. Settle into a comfortable position and allow yourself to take a deep breath, inhaling slowly. Hold it for 3, 2, 1, and as you exhale, feel any tension begin to melt away. This moment is just for you, Wayfarer, a time to explore your inner world. It's a time to clarify your deepest wishes and intentions. Take another deep breath in and release it gently. With each natural rhythmic breath, allow your body to relax more deeply. Feel your feet grounding to the earth, and as you continue to breathe, imagine a warm wave of relaxation washing over you from head to toe. As this warm wave of warmth and relaxation flows all the way through you, let go of the outside world and allow your focus to turn inward. Imagine now that you are in a tranquil place, a sanctuary where you feel safe, secure, and at peace. This could be anything you like, whatever makes you feel safe and secure. Serene forest, a quiet beach, a cozy hidden room filled with soft light. Picture the colors around you, the gentle sounds, and the comforting scents that fill the air. In this sacred space, you can explore your deepest desires. As you embrace this feeling of comfort, allow your mind to drift. And as you listen to my voice, you may find that your thoughts become softer, like clouds floating across a serene sky. Each thought that passes is a gentle reminder of your journey inward. In this beautiful, relaxed state, I invite you to imagine a vast landscape before you. This landscape represents your life, filled with possibilities and potential. As you look around, notice the paths that stretch out before you. Each path represents a different aspect of your life: relationships, career, health, personal growth. Begin to walk along the path that calls to you most strongly. And with each step, you feel more connected to your desires, more aware of what you truly want. As you walk along, envision the scenery changing, a reflection of your dreams and wishes. As you walk, find a comfortable place in this landscape to sit down and relax. It could be a soft patch of grass, a smooth stone, a cozy chase lounge on the beach, a recliner in your private room. Allow yourself to settle in and take a moment to breathe deeply, feeling the energy of the place enveloping you. As you sit here, let's begin to clarify your wishes. I invite you to visualize a glowing orb of scintillating white light in front of you. This orb represents your intentions. As it shimmers and scintillates, notice the colors it emits, each color representing a different desire or wish. Take a moment to focus on one color that resonates with you. What does this color represent? Is it love, success, peace, or creativity? Allow this color to expand and fill your vision. As you do, think about what this wish looks like in your life. What does it feel like to achieve this desire? Picture it vividly. What are the sounds, the smells, the sights? Immerse yourself in this experience. Now, while you hold this image in your mind, let's articulate this wish together. Silently or aloud, state your intention clearly. For example, I wish for abundance in my life. Or, I seek deep, meaningful connections. Feel the power of your words as they resonate in this serene space. Allow them to take root in your heart, growing stronger with each repetition. When you finish with this inner visual exercise, continue to bask in the feeling. And if you have a journal, or you'd simply like to visualize writing down your wishes, imagine a pen in your hand gliding across the page effortlessly. Begin to write down your intentions, letting your thoughts flow freely. There's no right or wrong here. Just allow your true desires to emerge. You might want to write phrases like, I am open to receiving love, or I am committed to my personal growth. As you write, envision each word as a seed being planted in fertile soil, ready to grow and blossom. Spend a few moments allowing your thoughts to pour out onto the page or into your mind, feeling a sense of clarity and purpose. If you need prompting, you might ask, what makes me truly happy? What do I want to experience more of in my life? How do I want to feel each day? Simple prompt like these or others can help you articulate your desires with clarity and conviction. When you've practiced enough for today and you begin to wrap up this writing exercise, take a moment to review what you've noted. Feel the satisfaction of having clarified your wishes. Each intention is a stepping stone towards your desired future. When you feel ready, imagine gathering all of your tensions and placing them into the glowing orb of light before you. This orb now radiates with your desires, growing brighter with each passing moment. Know that this light is a powerful force for drawing your wishes closer to you. As you begin to rise from the peaceful spot in the landscape where you have been reclining, carry this sense of clarity and purpose with you. Know that you can return to this serene place whenever you need guidance or support. In a moment, I'll count up from 1 to 5, and with each count, you'll return to the present moment, bringing with you the bliss and clarity you have cultivated in this session. 1, take a deep breath, slowly coming back. Hold and let it invigorate you. 2, feeling the energy returning to your body. 3, becoming aware of your surroundings. 4, stretching your body gently in all directions. 5, eyes open, fully alert and refreshed. Welcome back, Wayfarer. You have taken an important step in clarifying your wishes and intentions, and you carry this sense of empowerment with you. Remember, the journey to manifesting your desires begins with clarity, and you have just embraced the journey to begin again, like Finnegan. Well, that's going to be all for today, Wayfarer. Make sure to check me out at buymeacoffee.com. Hit the like button to keep the old algobots barking like Pavlov's dog. And as we finish today's transmission, Wayfarer, I will finish off with the invocation of total integration. If you know it, say it with me. Heaven and earth are the spontaneous manifestations of the subtle, wondrous, universal law. As the original oneness expresses itself, gross and subtle energies become distinctly divided. Our bodily caves are brightly illuminated by the mysterious light from the 3 sources, our 3 Dantean bridge points leading to immortality. The powerful spirits of the 8 directions can join our being with the true origin of life. By the absolute order of the divine Ling Bao in the highest 9th heaven, send the positive energies of Qianlo, Dana, Dunkan, and Taishuan to destroy our spiritual obstacles and debilitate any evil influence. This order is given by the highest sovereignty. It is a jade oracle from the subtle origin. I invoke with strong sincerity to drive away the demons and evils and lengthen my healthy years. The attained spirits respond. The evil demon king, Mo Wang, is chained to stand as our garden servant. The powerful atmosphere has been generated, dispersing all negativity. The Chi of Tao is everlasting. So it is commanded and confirmed. So mote it be. Amen. Thank you for joining me today on this brief transmission from Twilight Zone Old Peking in the central kingdom of Celestial Dragon, far behind the bamboo firewall. All I ask, Wayfarer, is that you hit the like button, maybe come back later and leave a comment on the video. That'll certainly help out the channel. And you can check me out at buymeacoffee.com/Frank Monday if you'd like to know a little bit more about the upcoming 100-day challenge for internal alchemy. Keep doing good magic, and I'll see you in the abodes of the future at Astra Paraspera. Until next time, bye for now, and good magic.